Welcome. This is the Ag Engineering Podcast, where we talk tools, tips, and techniques to improve the sustainability of your farm. I am your host, Andy Chamberlain from the University of Vermont Extension, and this podcast is supported by Northeast SARE, providing grants and education to advance innovation in sustainable agriculture. We're trying to improve the industry by chatting with farmers and getting their input on tools, tips, or techniques that have changed the way they farm for good. Many of these practices affect multiple areas of the farm. Whether it be environmentally, emotionally, physically, or financially, we share the knowledge to promote sustainable agriculture, lifestyle, and business. Thanks for having a listen. Now, let's get started. Today's episode comes from southwestern Pennsylvania, where we meet with a vendor, importer, and manufacturer of vegetable farm equipment called Market Farm Implement. Dave started out as a farmer and transitioned into selling vegetable equipment when he found out that his local dealer didn't offer what he needed. From seeders and transplanters, cultivators, or harvesters, he can tell you the ins and outs of what works well or what doesn't. During this visit, I snapped both photos and videos, so you can see these displayed in the show notes at agengpodcast.com or on our YouTube channel. This episode explains how Dave assembles these tractor-mounted planters to be set up for the individual uses for each customer, including the number of row units, wheel spacing, and fertilizer attachments. So here's the conversation talking about MaterMacc planters.
So this is a one-row MaterMacc. It's going to Massachusetts, so he's doing pumpkins, squash, gourds.
Yep.
It gets a fertilizer attachment yet. That's the only thing I have to install. I'm the only one that assembles planters, other than the factory in Italy. Every other planter that's shipped around the world is made in Italy.
Shipped whole.
Yep. A dealer orders one from France or Russia or China, wherever, and they build it there. I don't know how you do it that way, personally, because I hardly build any two planters that are the same. So I couldn't just say, send me a 2-row on 72-inch tire centers, 36-inch rows with dry fertilizer. And then the guy would say, well, I'm on 60-inch tire centers, and I just want a 2-row, but I don't want any fertilizer. Well, I don't want to have to take those components off and have them sitting. So I start with a piece of square tubing.
Yep.
There's
hold that there.
Sitting all around here. I have different lengths. I have up to 20 feet long. And we made these frames. There's more of them. So we built these that plug in the ends. That holds the bar up for me.
Perfect.
Then I usually take some finish cleaner, wipe it down good, mark a center. I marked his tire centers. This was 74. So I know how far to measure in for these brackets. Category 2 hitch, make my marks, center mark for the top link. So I do the 3-point hitch first. Then I put the fan on. I have to put a pulley in, put the fan belt on, tension it, do a little assembly on the gauge, mount that. Then I do the wheels, then I do the row rack. My brother first went to the show in Italy in '93, and he saw the planter. We were selling Monosem. Monosem came into the U.S. in the late '80s. We were one of their first dealers. He found out about the show in '93. MaterMacc was a pretty young company then. He went back. The show in Bologna is every other year. He went back in '95, looked at the planter again, went back in '97. 97 is when they came out with the row rack system. And he came back in 97 and said, I just saw what everyone's looking for. A way to simply, pull a pin and be able to slide the planter.
Yep.
So you could change your row spacings. So even with this one row, if he wanted to, he could offset from center 15 inches, drive down, turn around, come back the same tire path. He's got two 30-inch rows.
Yep.
He could put the planter back in the middle, do that again, he'd have 3 15s. And he only had a 1-row planter. Now that helps if you're on pretty level ground, because if you're on a slope, it's hard to track correctly. And we did things like that years ago, just because you're starting out with nothing and all you can afford is a 1-row planter. And
Does it slide pretty easily on
not
that?
bad, yeah. It oftentimes, it's better to raise your 3-point hitch.
Right.
To get, you're trying to move the wheels and the disc opener sideways.
Yeah.
It's designed to.
But once it's off the ground, you can just slide it.
Yeah.
Are the bearings on there?
No, they're just kind of metal slides. They used to be plastic, and they switched them over to metal. They actually have a little tool that helps you kind of fine tune it. So this does this.
Oh yeah, yep. So you can kind of wiggle it over.
Yeah, so sometimes you're trying to just line up. Now, the holes in the row rack, 25 millimeter, about 1 inch. These 3 locators are about 1.25 inches. And that way, like if this hole is center, you can only see about half a hole and no hole here. So it kind of gives you less than 1 inch adjustments. If these 3 were on the same as those, you'd only need the one middle one. And there's a way you can lock a planter up off the ground. So if you had a 2-row, you wanted to leave that planter where it is, lock it up, move this one to the middle for your 1-row crops.
You're not dragging it.
Yeah, you're not leaving it on the ground.
Yep.
You can lock it up off the ground. Yeah, there's ways to do that. So yeah, to change a seed disc, monosem, you have your 2 wing nuts. Here you just have 2 snaps here, 2 snaps over here. The cover comes off. You don't have any wing nuts to lose. I don't have a seed disc in this yet. Your singulator comes off. Your seed disc goes on. This wheel drives your seed disc through a gearbox, like monosem. The other wheel will drive the fertilizer hopper.
How well does it do at running out seed? Does it keep a handful in the bottom?
It'll actually pick up every last seed.
Okay.
Yeah. When you fill your hopper, it funnels things right to this location, which is right down here where the seed disc is picking up. Now, what'll happen is, at the very end, like say maybe the last dozen seeds, or 8 seeds, it may pick up 2 here.
Yeah.
And now you'll get a skip, but then one of them will get singulated off. So at the very end,
you might have a few blanks,
you're pushing it as far as planting, because you've got 12 seeds left. And so then I kind of put that end down in there, line up here at the cover, give it a push there, 2 snaps here, 2 here. You have a clear window here that you can look right into your singulator. So if you have it running and seed in there and raise your hitch so the wheel's off the ground, you can kind of have someone turn that, and you can play with your singulator before you go to the field.
Verify you've got vacuum.
Put a bag under here. This is a clean out, which just freely swings out of the way. And like just that little triangle, you might have to take your finger, that little bottom triangle, to, or just pop the cover off at that point and dump the seed out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll pick out every last seed. But you might have a few skips at the end.
Right.
Right. Could be a few skips at the end. And then your gearbox is over here. So this is what's called central transmission. If there were more planters, that shaft would just run through all of them. And you just have a quick release on the tension.
Oh, that's easy.
Top and bottoms move. So, if you want to I always jump the top one first. The bottom cluster also slides. And then you bring your tension back up. If you're on a small sprocket here and a small there, you have 2 holes. You always want to make sure you're pulling the spring. You always want tension on that chain. And there's a chart for your, depending on what seed disc you have in, will give you your spacings in inches. They only do that for me.
Nice.
First couple years, centimeters. I'm like, Tiziano. We don't know centimeters here.
Yeah, right.
So like I said, there's things they only make for us. Parts. Like, this is category 2 hitch,
Yeah.
and that's all they do. They don't know what category 1 is in Europe. But I'll have someone with 35 horse Kubota. He'll want to, and maybe just a 1 row.
Yeah.
And he only has Cat 1. So I have other hitch brackets that have same as the top link. They make this one for us. This is Cat 2 on this side, Cat 1 on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some bottom pieces that have that same thing. And they only make that for us. It's nice when you can deal with small enough companies, which a lot of the European things are, but...
As these age, what are some of the maintenance requirements needed or parts that may fail?
Well, I mean, you have a couple of chain drives. It'd probably be good to use a little lube on them from time to time. What do people... I mean, there's... the thing about my customers, I deal with people that are mostly 50 acres or less.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to take them 20 years to do what, a farmer doing 1,000 acres of field corn or soybeans is going to do in 1 year.
True.
I don't do a lot with parts. I mean, every now and then, maybe some bearings somewhere. I stock a lot of parts. I usually have what people need.
But like you said, for your clientele, it's way more than enough
with it.
Yeah.
They might plant 20 acres of sweet corn, and then with their small crops, succession plant beets and radishes and you name it, and then of course they have their transplants, which is different equipment. So their direct seeding isn't necessarily big acreage. I deal with a couple of big growers. These are the fertilizer hoppers, so I'll be using one of these on that 1 row. They're all stainless steel. They have a bigger hopper that I use sometimes. That holds about 140 pounds, and the bigger one holds about 300. Like I say, I make it up any way they want it. The newer design they've gotten things so complicated. They've actually had to do 2 toolbars.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to do that. See, they went to these separate chain cases. My chain case is bolted on to this, and so look how they're driving the fertilizer. They've got one here, another one here, another one here, and another one here.
It's just overly complicated.
When I started seeing this in the new parts books, I'm like, if I have to do that, I ain't doing MaterMacc anymore. I said, can I still buy the wheel assemblies the old way?
Right.
I said, Tiziano,
Assemble them yourself.
I'll buy 50 of that and 50 of that. And he said, oh yeah, no problem. We can still make them. So there are certain parts that I still do the old way. To me, it's just simpler. And I typically don't do, I've done a 1 row with row markers because he wanted his rows 12 feet apart. So now you can't use your tractor tires anymore.
Right.
And it is interesting, when you pin the guy down, pumpkins don't need that much room. He says, well, I have a 10-foot disc that I'm going to run in between as a cultivator.
I see.
Or he wants rows 8 feet apart because he has a 70-inch rototiller. It's like, I understand what you're doing now, but we always think of, you always drive in the same wheel tracks as you planted for cultivating. So, and we're typically just cultivating what we're driving over.
Right.
We're not big enough growers that we're using a 6-row corn planter, so we need a 6-row cultivator. But yeah, you do find that if you really pin the guy down, it's like, well, I have this 10-foot disc that I want to run in between the rows and just stay a foot away, and I'm going to use that for a cultivator till they start to get a little bushier and start to vine out. So it's a little funny, but that's the way things go sometimes.
Have you added stuff to your planters to make them no-till?
We do no-till. The factory never really did. They have some no-till stuff now, but When we do no-till, then Mike has to weld up a double bar with a 20-inch gap. It can't be close like that one you saw. Because, well, number one, if it's a one row, well, the top mast and the fan are right there.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't put a coulter right there. And that's why we make a tandem bar. We put the hitch and the fan on the front bar. That way the back bar where the row units are, you have space in front of the row units to put the coulters and the row cleaners. We get that from Yetter, the no-till gear.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you learned something today or plan to make a change on your farm, let me know. I'd love to receive any feedback you have. Just click the link in the description to submit the form. It will help the future of this podcast to be a resource that is helpful for you. And while you're at it, I hope you go ahead and subscribe, share this with a friend, or leave a comment. And if you want more information, check out the show notes on our website at agengpodcast.com. That's agengpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
The proceeding has been a production of University of Vermont Extension. For more information on Extension, log on to www.uvm.edu/extension.